All right, welcome back, focused learners. Today, we are diving into something truly fascinating. We're looking at the foundational blueprint of who we actually are. We're going to be exploring this incredibly comprehensive framework known as the human operating system. And the main idea here is that true, lasting personal growth doesn't actually begin with trying to change your external circumstances. Instead, it all starts with designing your internal architecture.
So who are you? I mean, it's a massive question, right? But the crazy thing is, most traditional personal development systems totally skip right past this. They usually just tell you to start by setting goals. What do you want to achieve? What kind of car do you want to own? But the source material we're breaking down today completely challenges that universally accepted idea. It demands that we stop and ponder our true identity first.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this quote right here completely flips the standard script. The whole concept is that we're often taught personal development completely backward. Think about it. Goals are constantly changing, right? But your identity, who you are at your core, that's much more stable. So a genuinely meaningful life is built by first designing the person who is actually capable of creating those lasting results.
So here is our 6-step blueprint for today's explainer. We're going to start with the identity foundation. Then check out the life balance dashboard. Explore values, beliefs, and character. Map out purpose, mission, and vision. Introduce something called the external observer, and we'll wrap it all up with the self-awareness engine. Let's get to it.
Starting us off with Part 1, the Identity Foundation.
So before we can even begin to decide where we're going in life, we absolutely have to lay down the concrete foundation of who we are. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark difference in this philosophy. The traditional model assumes that if you just hit your goals, it'll eventually shape your identity. But the human operating system model, it places identity as the anchor. Identity leads to your purpose, which then dictates your goals. You literally have to define who you are becoming before you can decide what it is you want to achieve. To actually put this into practice, the text introduces this really cool concept, the identity compass. Instead of just randomly asking, what do I want out of life, you run through these 5 sequential questions. You identify your current self, your future vision, and your core values. Then, you literally filter every decision and habit through that specific lens. It creates this continuous cycle where you're designing the person capable of achieving outcomes rather than just endlessly running on a treadmill chasing the outcomes themselves.
Moving right along to Part 2, the Life Balance Dashboard.
Okay, so once that foundation is set, we really need to know where we currently stand. I mean, you can't navigate to a new destination if you don't know your current coordinates, right? And what's great is that abstract concepts like life balance can actually be turned into a tangible, measurable dashboard. By scoring key areas of your life like health, relationships, and career on a scale from 1 to 10, you can clearly see the exact gap between your current reality and your desired aspiration. Real growth always begins with honestly understanding this gap. But here is a really vital insight from the source. You should absolutely not try to improve everything all at once. That's a recipe for burnout. This system focuses entirely on leverage, not overload. The priority engine advises you to tackle the single gap that impacts everything else. For example, if your health score is super low, focusing on improving your sleep or getting some exercise might naturally end up boosting your career energy and making you way more patient in your relationships. It's all connected.
That brings us to Part 3, values, beliefs, and character.
Now that we know our external location, we're going to shift gears and examine our internal decision engine. Think of these as the hidden lines of code that govern your choices before you even consciously realize you're making them. Before making any significant decision, the framework suggests running it through this values calibration engine. It's a powerful tool that acts as the very first stage of every major choice you make. It basically ensures that your life is guided by examined values and solid evidence, rather than just fleeting emotional impulses or random unverified assumptions. So the crucial point here is understanding the stark difference between personality and character. The source makes a really brilliant distinction that I love. Personality basically describes how you naturally tend to behave, whether you're introverted or super outgoing. But character describes how you choose to behave. While your personality is largely innate, your character is intentionally chosen and then continuously developed through repeated actions over time. Simply put, anyone can choose to be courageous, no matter what their natural personality is.
Next up, Part 4, purpose, mission, and vision. All right, with our internal decision engine calibrated, we've reached the real turning point of the human operating system. This is where we take words that usually feel like empty corporate buzzwords and transform them into a deeply personal compass. Let's start by defining the foundational layer, purpose. According to the text, your purpose answers the ultimate why. It is your stable reason for being. It's the core driver that gives your life meaning. And what's really important to note here is that this rarely, if ever, changes throughout your lifetime.
Building on that, we have mission. If purpose is the why, mission is the what. It's the highly actionable expression of your purpose. Your mission is essentially your current operational mandate. And unlike your purpose, your mission is absolutely expected to evolve as you enter different seasons of your life.
And completing the trio is vision, which answers the where. What is the specific future you are actively trying to create? Having a crystal clear vision acts as your North Star. It's this vivid destination that perfectly connects your tiny, seemingly insignificant daily habits today to the 20-year legacy you ultimately want to leave behind. Moving on to part 5, the external observer.
So we've built a really solid structure, but as humans, we have a pretty fundamental limitation. We live our entire lives from the inside out, which makes it incredibly hard to see ourselves objectively. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can overcome that limitation by organizing our psychological architecture. The text introduces a highly unique tool called the mirror. It's the ability to temporarily step completely outside of yourself. You have the experiencing self who is just living in the moment, but you have to actively cultivate the observing self, the architect who steps back to review the whole building without any judgment, so you can properly guide the becoming self toward its full future potential.
Now, to actually activate that observing self, the text provides these intensely provocative mirror questions. Honestly, these are highly practical ways to detect our own blind spots. By asking something as tough as, "What truth am I refusing to face?" we immediately start closing the gap between our carefully curated reputation and our true, authentic identity.
Finally, we arrive at part 6, the self-awareness engine.
This right here is the central CPU of the entire human operating system. This is where we take everything we've just learned and transform mere observation into real, actionable intelligence. Your daily operating cycle breaks down into 3 distinct levels. Level 1 is just noticing what happened. The problem? Most people completely stop right there. To achieve real personal evolution, you've got to push to level 2, which is understanding the why beneath the action. And then, crucially, you have to reach level 3, transformation, deciding exactly what needs to change moving forward.
And this transformation isn't a one-time event. It's sustained through a nested system of feedback loops. Think of it kind of like navigating an aircraft. You make daily tweaks to your habits, you look for larger behavioral patterns weekly, you audit your major life domains monthly, and you redesign your long-term trajectory yearly. These continuous, really small course corrections prevent those massive life crises from happening and keep your daily actions perfectly aligned with your purpose.
So, there you have it. We've explored the blueprint for the self. Everything from identity and values, all the way to objective observation and continuous self-correction. But remember, a blueprint is just a piece of paper until you actually start construction. So as we wrap up this explainer and you go back to your day, I want to leave you with this stark, empowering question drawn straight from the core of the human operating system. Think about it. Who are you choosing to become today?